One of the things I want to talk about at the beginning is the issue of populism and other things going on geopolitically that are affecting the kinds of portfolios we design. Ron sort of mentioned a little bit about this. My personal view is that there's no low-hanging fruit. It doesn't really matter what asset class you're talking about, whether it's fixed income, whether it's equities, whether it's real estate, everything is very close, priced to perfection. A question for all of you that I'm going to look at towards the end of the presentation is, do any of you have one of the 7 habits of ineffective investors? It's almost certain we all have at least one. And finally, déjà vu. In other words, have we already been here before? So how might this play out? So let's take a look at this. This gentleman here is Ian Bremner. He is a great geopolitical strategist. He's a regular at the Malden Conference in Dallas. And he has 3 big themes in his book. The first is the impact of demographics. The second is where we are with respect to populism. And of course, the ongoing issue of the 1% and the impact that they're having on world politics. So let's just look at each of these individually. So this is obviously a little baby crying. I'm reliably informed that's what I looked like when I was 6 months old. And it's about the baby bust, because back in 1960, this was the birth rate in a lot of different countries, all of which were quite significant, well above replacement rates, including in Europe, US, Canada. Today, those birth rates have plummeted. In fact, in order to actually break even, for your population not to shrink, you have to be at 2.1. So virtually no developed country in the world is at the break-even stage. In Canada, our population would already be shrinking if we didn't have immigration. This is true for all of Europe, a large part of Asia, including China as well. And China's population, China's labor population, has been shrinking since 2012. Some of you are old enough to remember this movie from 1964, Mary Poppins. So you remember Bert and the Flower Lady. This is Angela Lansbury and Dick Van Dyke. So how many people have seen the new Mary Poppins? Just kind of show of hands. Because we took our granddaughter there about 2 or 3 months ago. And guess who's in the movie? Angela Lansbury as the balloon lady and Bert as Mr. Dawes. And Bert, or Dick Van Dyke, I should say, gets on the desk and dances. Now, the reason I mention this is he manages to jump up on the desk all by himself, has a pretty good dance. Now, he is 93 and she is 92. So it begs the question, is 90 the new 60? Now, I'd like to think so, since I'm not likely to see 60 again anytime soon, so I'd like that to be true. Which reminds me that I was looking for some sort of more humorous cartoons for older people, not to suggest that you're older people, of course. And this one really resonated with me because in 1971, that's when I met my wife in the elevator at the Hotel Vancouver. She was an elevator operator. I just want to let you millennials know there was a time that they actually had elevator operators. They did actually exist. So we met in 1971, got married in 75. This guy says, I was unfaithful to you once with some redhead in the men's room of a pool hall in 1971. I was drunk. To which she says, that was me. And then, of course, fast forward to today. So back when I was in my 30s, a new neighbor moved in. He was a doctor. Really, he became our GP, delivered 2 of our children. And he convinced me to join his soccer team with, we would play soccer together, we played tennis, we played golf, very active. But he was a pretty smart doctor because he said, back then, you could deliver babies till the cows came home. He said he realized, basically, looking at aging and demographics, that trying to be a doctor delivering babies like when he's, say, 65, probably wasn't going to work out as well. So he decided to become an anti-aging doctor. He got board certified in the US, and he's still my doctor. It's just that the visits are a little bit different. They're more like this. So this pill's for your heart, this is for your eyes, blood pressure, diabetes, blood thinner, cholesterol, and that's for dizziness. And all I say is what's for dessert. So things, evolve, as you say, over time. And of course, economics, the science of explaining tomorrow why the predictions you made yesterday don't come true today. So regardless of what we say to you tonight, everything we're talking about is an estimate. It's not actually a prediction. But one thing to think about is this, and this is an interesting thing. Interest rates are incredibly low. Most of us have never actually experienced rates as low as this in our lifetimes. What if they never go back? So why would that be true? Well, this is an interesting graph. This is showing the average old age dependency ratio. That means the further right you go, the older the country is. And inflation is on the left-hand side. And you can see that there's a trend. Basically, older countries have less inflation, even deflation. And if you want to know what it's going to look like in 10, 20, or 30 years, you just need to look at Japan for the last 20 years. With the lowest interest rates in the world, shrinking population, and paradoxically able to somehow massively, I mean, we talked about the US debt being high. Japanese debt is more than double that of the US and about 3 times that of Canada, and yet they still can't generate any interest rates or inflation.